Welcome back, press fans. Coming to you from Altman Studios in downtown Brentwood to your ears wherever you are. This is Clocked In with the Press. I'm Jake Vanez, here today with the press publisher Greg Robinson and Chef Greg Reynoso, a.k.a. Mr. Tasty of Tasty's Kitchen. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great, Jake. Glad to be here. Greg, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. First one, so I look forward to this.
Well, let's clear it up a little before we go into the commercial break. We've got two Gregs here, so Greg Robinson, let's hear your voice so people can tell the difference.
Hi, I'm Greg Robinson. I am the publisher of the Brentwood Press.
And Greg Reynoso, let's hear your voice.
I'm Greg Reynoso, a.k.a. Mr. Tasty with Tasty's Kitchen.
Perfect. Before we get into it, let's get a quick word from our sponsor.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at the Lucas Group, an independently owned and operated real estate company in Brentwood. The Lucas Group specializes in all aspects of real estate, working with both buyers and sellers to meet their home ownership needs. Give them a call today at 925-392-8926.
So, Mr. Tasty, tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been cooking professionally?
Well, professionally, as in my business, I want to say I've been cooking for the last 2 years from when I got released. But I've been cooking my whole life. To go back a little bit, I was incarcerated 10 years ago. I was released March 15th, 2020, the day of COVID. From there, I kind of really didn't have a job, couldn't find a job to the point where the little jobs I was working at, it wasn't really steady to where I started cooking pretty much for friends and family to the point where I looked at it as a business, seeing what it would have took to kind of start a business, and which I did. So I want to say started cooking professionally, I guess, a year and a half ago.
And so you said you've loved cooking your whole life. Do you remember kind of what inspired that love of cooking? Is there a specific memory or something?
Well, growing up in a Latin home with my mother, she cooked everything out of scratch, literally everything. You know, from the beans, the rice, to the pancakes, everything was out of scratch. And I have a big family, and I was pretty much the only one that would really help her out, you know.
So you mentioned that you were incarcerated, and I think that's amazing that you're here talking about your story today. At what point when you were incarcerated did the cooking become a big prevalent for you?
It's funny exactly when you ask that. I remember while I was incarcerated, there's really not much to eat, you know, besides top ramen, you know. And my whole thing is I just wanted to figure out different ways of eating this top ramen to the point where I would literally get in prison, they give you these package catalogs where you could kind of send a letter to your family to tell them what you want, and it has various of rices, beans, seasonings, you know, from your clothing, everything you pretty much could get while you're incarcerated. Well, I would look back at this catalog and see, you know, I would think about like enchiladas, you know, chilaquiles, tamales, you know, little things, and think, because I knew the ingredients to it, and see what similarities in these catalogs can I find to make these things. So I would literally order packages of seasoning, sauces, different type of top, you know, the different top ramens, the meat packs, and I would create my own meals to the point where I made tamale, chilaquiles, you know, I even had steak and eggs, and people would throw it around like, man, you know, the term when you're incarcerated is making spreads, you know, or buzz downs. But it got to the point where it was a thing where people were like, man, Greg don't make spreads, he makes meals, you know, and that's one thing from me traveling to different prisons, you know. I would always say, you know, I don't make spreads, I make meals, you know, and I literally would make meals. You know, you were limited with the stuff you had in there, but I still created things that to this day you look at and wouldn't believe that was made by Top Ramen, you know, that was made by refried beans and meat packets, tunas, you know, Spam. Like a lot of the things I created in there was based off of, you know, I was limited. So, you know, to answer that question as well as getting released, you know, when I got home, it was, buy my clothes, you know. I literally I woke up the next morning, and sad to say, I remembered I don't even have a toothbrush. I don't even have deodorant. But when we did go to the store that next morning to go get these things, I walked right through the seasoning aisle, and I was just like, man, I bought a bunch of seasonings because now I wasn't really limited to the things I could do. And at the end of the day, if you really think about it, if I made this amazing food while I was incarcerated with Top Ramen, you know, it was just endless now.
That's amazing. So at the prison, was that a program where they had some of the inmates where you were allowed to cook? Were you cooking for other inmates, specifically for yourself?
Certain prisons do have programs. I don't want to say cooking programs, but no, everything was in my cell.
Wow.
Yeah, everything was in my cell, and it's crazy how the creativity comes, because you don't have microwaves or stovetops or stuff like that, Not to say too much, but we would make our own utensils, our own little boilers and fryers, And at the end of the day, I just loved cooking, and when it came to cooking for others, it was more so of my people. It was never cooking by yourself. You cook by yourself when you're kind of by yourself, but that's where the term spread, I believe, came from, because you're really doing a spread amongst your people, And it was always the unity for us, being incarcerated. I always had those brothers, the camaraderie of my people, So I've never really cooked just by myself. It was like, hey man, Greg, what you cooking? Like, this is what I'm doing, to the point where being incarcerated, it's most of the time you're there more than a year. So you build this, I guess, brothership, friendships with a lot of people in there, to where it's a natural thing. Like, hey man, what you cooking next week? Well, I'm gonna cook this. All right, what do you need me to order you? Oh, I need you, order this. So like, it was already, constantly, it was just cooking for everyone,
No, I think it's terrific, because cooking is eating is just such a social thing instead of a work program. So, what is your training as far as cooking? It's just all from the heart and instinct, or how did you learn how to cook?
I would say heart and instinct, but you do have jobs there. So I did work in the kitchen. You start off in the scullery, working there, then you actually start, getting certain positions. But it got to the point where I was one of the lead cooks in one of the facilities that I was working at. From there, it's not really training, because it's the standard, cutting and measuring, stuff like that. But I actually, all that gave me was more access to like vegetables, flour, eggs, and yeah, we had to take it, but at the end of the day, like, it allowed me to kind of grow, I guess, and expand my cooking. The horizon of just cooking spreads, and cooking with top ramen. I was able to bring back flour, eggs, certain seasonings, certain vegetables, to where I was able just to cook more than just the average spread, to say.
That's amazing. So you get out of prison, pandemic starts. What's next? How did you get to Taste This Kitchen?
It was more so that I've always told people, even those that are, like I said, still incarcerated to this day, they always, call. I always have money on the phone, and they always tell me it's crazy how I was walking the yard and you would say this, and then there you are, it's humbling, because it reminds me of when I was in the yard and when I was incarcerated. Even when there wasn't people there, and I didn't even talk about it, but to myself, I would always tell myself that I wanted to do something. I never owned a business, I had nowhere to really think or how to start, but it was more so like I wanted to do something in that sense. And cooking was something to where it was like, I don't have a talent, I don't know how to sing, I don't know how to draw, I don't, I really don't know a lot of things. So what I did know was cooking, and the passion and the food, Like I always say, I love cooking because I love catering to my people, rather if it's, having parties or through the food. And it was more so when I got out, first thing they tell you is you need to get a job. As a felon, you need to get a job. That's part of the requirements. Mind you, I got out March 15, 2020, the day of the pandemic. The day I got released, which was 6 a.m, the drive home by 9 o'clock, they were like, yeah, everything's locked down. And for me being incarcerated for 10 years, I'm like, what does that mean? It was kind of weird. I was like, okay, so I kind of put the ideas of me wanting to create something, because Taste This Kitchen wasn't even a thought, but it was more so like I wanted to open a donut shop or something in the lines of food. But, that got dismissed because it's like, okay, now I need to get a job. But being the pandemic and it being new to everyone else, as well as me, it was hard getting a job. Either the places were closed or they weren't hiring. And then being a felon, it was more pressure because I had to get a job. So all the ideas and the things I wanted to do kind of got put on hold, to where the point where I started working. My godfather gave me a job. It was decent. It was a job. It was hard, and I didn't really show it. I made it look natural, but I got to remind people, like, I was 19 when I was incarcerated. I served 10 years. So being released, I'm 30 years old and I'm held to 30-year-old standards. And I've never had credit or banking or, medical, dental. I never had to do these things. I was still a kid to where now I'm coming out. I have to, as a 30-year-old, I'm held to those standards, and it was difficult, and then getting a job and then working, it was hard. It was hard to the point where I had good friends around me. The reason why I really started everything is, of course, family and friends, but my boy, Jose, he's the owner of Bay Area Customs right here in Brentwood. He finally told me one day, like, dude, you're a cook, man. Like, you're really good at cooking. You got to start doing that, to where he gave me an idea, like, hey, man, like, my son's birthday is coming up. Would you be able to cook for it? Like, kind of do your thing. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, let's do it, Not really thinking about it, and I did it. It turned out great, and because it was COVID, a lot of people weren't working or cooking, so it's like I got phone calls like, "Hey, you think you could do my party? You think you do my party?" And I would, just to be safe, like I'm not licensed, I don't have nothing to, I'll cook for you, but it's more so of me doing it for you, to where it blew up, and I kind of sat back and was talking to my wife, like, how do we make this legal? And she's started researching. We got our LLC, started getting the permits, and yeah, it just literally took off from there.
So that was the birth of the food truck.
Yeah.
So you have a catering food truck that you're doing catering for festivals.
Yeah, well, it wasn't even the food truck. It was just cooking, like the Blackstone Grill, going to parties and just doing little parties, to the point where it's like, what's the next step? The restaurant was like, oh, let's look into the restaurant. Then the how it was gonna cost and how much it usually costs is like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. Mind you, I just got out, from doing 10 years in prison, had to start credit, and it was like, okay, that's not gonna happen. So a friend of mine told me, dude, get a food truck, and I was just like, okay. But then looking into the food trucks, they're very expensive, and I didn't have the luxury of buying a food truck like that. But then I, like, going back to my friend Jose, he was like, hey, man, like, let's do it. A bunch of my friends came together. I ended up buying my first food truck, which was just the trailer. And then little by little, I would save up money, buy a fryer, little by little, buy a refrigerator, to the point where it was actually built. And we did our first little pop-up, and it literally took off from there.
Well, we've heard lots of good things about your food and your catering. So now you have a restaurant that's getting ready to open. How did that transition happen from the food truck to restaurant?
I had the long-term goal of wanting to open a restaurant, and I always told myself, like, I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but for 5 years, we're gonna push for a restaurant. And really, what made that happen is I got a crazy phone call. I thought it was a prank at first, but it was regarding to be part of a commercial. That's what really gave me that push, after, to push for the restaurant. Opening a restaurant is not easy, but I had a lot of help. And when I brought up the things to a couple of my friends, a great friend of mine, Amina, I was kind of telling them, like, hey, I want to, I don't know if this makes sense. I want to ride the wave now, like, as it's building, and with all the support. And I feel like going back, catering to my people, my friends and family, like, they showed that they wanted more. So it's like, we have to grow. And like I said, I still need to get taught how to use the computer, because I'm backed up, and the emails and all this, like, it's all new to me, to where I reached out to my friend and I told him, look, Taste's Kitchen is my business, and it is what I created. But in order to expand, you need growth. And this goes back to me being incarcerated, having the friends that I had. I wasn't just sitting there stagnant. Like, I was groomed by individuals that are knowledgeable, that have the tenacity, that have the knowledge, but really can't do it, to where they pass it on and kind of groom me, like, man, whatever you want to do, but not only just that, to be there on a daily basis with them, and me constantly telling you and reminding you, so how great your mind is, how great your body is. And if you have an idea, push that. So I kind of reached out to Mina, like, hey, man, I'm pretty much going to ask you this. Like, I know I could get there, but let's boost this up and make this go a lot faster. Like, what you want to do? And he's like, at the end of the day, he's like, what do you want to do? What do you need from me? And I kind of sat there like, you know what, give me a couple days. Me and him talked literally for days and days, and we came up with the plan like, no, we're gonna push and get a restaurant. And sure enough, the 5-year goal turned into a year and a half, and now we're in the last phases. Hopefully, within the next month, we'll be opening our doors.
That's amazing. So we're going to loop back to that in just a moment. But before we do, I'd love to know. So we've talked about the challenges of opening the restaurant, just hitting the ground running, having to learn all these things as you've been getting started. But what's one thing you're excited about? What's been a positive element of it? What's been something you've been really proud of the way you handled it?
When I was just last week working in the restaurant, there's always something to do, and especially building it. My partner tells me, hey, they're going to be dropping off the dumpsters. So it's like, okay, just the dumpsters, whatever, and I go out there to actually see them dropping off the dumpsters, and the guy comes out with the Sharpie and he starts putting Taste His Kitchen on the dumpster. The reason why I'm saying this is because it's so humbling, the things about like opening a restaurant. It's the cliche things, the things that's expected, like, oh, it's going to be amazing. People are going to draw people, not only that for myself is like, now I could expand myself and I have a commercial kitchen, I remember working within these 10 years, I've always worked in the scullery. In order to get into the main position of the cooks, you have to start from the bottom. And I remember working in these sculleries and hating it to the point where I own one now. Like, to sit there and looking at the scullery, like, it's not as big as the ones in prison, but it's like, that's mine. Like, literally, that's mine. I own my own scullery. And so to sit there and be like being incarcerated, working for one and like owning one is one thing. Like, these are the things like was expected, like, But when those dumpsters came, it was really like, it hit me. Like, it really hit me. Even just talking about it, it just reminds me on how humbling things are, because these are the things that no one really tells you about. Oh, when you open you're going to get dropped off, these dumpsters. And to me, it was emotional because it was the fact that, like, to these things that you don't talk about it, but when they're actually getting dropped off and they're wheeling 2 big old dumpsters, and to sit there seeing them put your name on it, it's like, those are mine. Like, that is mine. Like, that's something of what was an idea, not even just come reality, but living it. A lot of people will say, it must be hard starting your business. Like, it is hard, but working for somebody else is hard too, and like I tell people all the time, it sucks to suck, it sucks working for somebody, but we have to do it. And then owning a restaurant and owning a business sucks too, but it's like, it's a good suck, I guess.
I think it's a great point. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to chat a little bit more about that commercial we talked about, and then a little bit more about the kitchen as well. Stick around.
Today's sponsor, the Lucas Group, has been in business since 2005 and is now offering clients the most cutting-edge solutions in property technology through HomeLight's suite of products and services. Simple sales, trade-ins, and cash offers. For simple sales, the Lucas Group makes selling your home easy. Sell when you're ready without the hassle of paying for repairs, prepping for listing, or dealing with showings. Receive a competitive, no-obligation cash offer, typically within 48 hours. Close in as little as 10 days. If you would like to avoid the stress, risk, and hassle of buying and selling at the same time, the Lucas Group can help with a trade-in, a calmer, more certain alternative to real estate. They will buy your current home, giving you the freedom to buy your new home. And if your current home sells for more than the price of your new home, the Lucas Group pays you the difference, minus the selling costs. If you want to triple your winning potential, the Lucas Group has a cash offer program. The Lucas Group will help you make the strongest offer possible with a 21-day close for free. That means no program or lender fees. Call the Lucas Group's award-winning agents today at 925-392-8926.
Thanks once again to this week's sponsor. Let's get back into it. So, Greg, Mr. Tasty, I understand that you had an opportunity to work with Lebron James and did an episode with a program called Own Your Ridges. Tell us how you met LeBron and what that was all about.
Last year, I was given a call about them hearing about my story and wanting to see if I wanted to partake in Own Your Ridges campaign. Thought it was a prank at first, but then as soon as we got the email, it was real. I called a couple of friends, like, I really don't know this whole email or contracting things, and we kind of went past that to the point where they end up flying me out to LA. So the whole point of the commercial and the Own Your Ridges campaign is pretty much about Ruffles, how it's made with ridges, as well as how human beings and we are, groomed and based off of our ridges. And it's owning that, and how I was a male that was incarcerated and got out and built a business, pretty much was owning my ridges. The thing about this whole commercial and this thing that I tell a lot of people is they didn't not just help me, kind of push me to start my business and go even further, because they gave me this great opportunity, and which I appreciate Ruffles, for relating everyone else that was part of that team to give me that. But it was more so of me being me, because I am tattooed, I have that image, and I've been judged my whole life. But now it's more so like I could literally walk out anywhere and be who I am. And that whole Own Your Ridges was pretty much that and more. So I was given the opportunity to do this amazing commercial, the Own Your Ridges campaign, which was with Lebron James, and not only just him, but a lot of other great stories.
Were there other people that had similar stories and ruffles and ridges that were part of this commercial campaign? How many other people were there?
There was Jay. She was an amazing barber. Justin, he was a blind skateboarder to even now, to me, was just inspirational, like to be part of and to hear their stories. It was all of us put together for this commercial to pretty much promote that, it doesn't matter who you are or where you are or even what you've done, as long as it's just, to come out of that and to do something great. And I was given that opportunity out of a lot to kind of share my story, to where I was incarcerated, and I got out, and with the due diligence and the pressure, I built what it is now. And, I didn't build a business. I'm building a culture.
Great. So did you get to meet LeBron James?
So because it was COVID, it was still all new. So we really didn't get to sit down and chat, but we were all there recording in our different little booths and stuff. It was a crazy experience.
Are the commercials still airing?
Yes, the commercial's still airing. You could find it on YouTube. Apparently you could Google it.
Did I hear you say that there was another product that might be tapping you on the shoulder as far as part of the Ruffles group?
After doing this commercial with Ruffles, I kind of came home and was just like, want to show appreciation to them. Like, they gave me the opportunity to kind of share my story. So I created this ruffle wrap, and I kind of sat in the kitchen, and me and my wife kind of created it, and we came up with this concept, which is a tortilla chicken breaded with Ruffles, and it's pretty much my sauce that I make for my spicy chicken sandwiches. And we pitched it to Ruffles to where they gave me a contract, and, we have it trademarked. It's the ruffle wrap that we serve out of our trailer, And so that was pretty cool that they, allowed me to use the name and the brand to pretty much be a part of my business. They fell in love with it, and they're like, yeah, and got the contract and was able to share that to everyone else now.
So the restaurant's going to open up next month. What are going to be some of your top types of foods that you're going to sell? I know that your name is Taste This Kitchen for the variety, but do you have some specialty items that you'd like to let people know about?
With the growth, I hired a lot of people to where it's literally a great team. Like, to sit back and have this amazing team and this great turnout. One of the people that we have part of our team, his name is Joe, a great chef, a very credentialed chef, and we've been sitting back and creating this menu. And I don't want to say too much because, like I said, I want it to be a surprise, but within these next couple of days, we have a lot of things planned. So follow our social media. We post everything, 4th of July, we want to do a sign unveiling, which a good friend of ours out here in Brentwood, a great welder, made this amazing sign for us. And that's something we take pride in. I don't want to speak too much on the menu. I want you guys to come check us out, on social media, as well as the restaurant. But, at the end of the day, the whole concept of Taste This Kitchen is to taste our kitchen.
Does it sound like that you're going to have each week a different variety of food? Is that what you're alluding to? That
we do have, we're going to serve breakfast, brunch, and dinner. We want to cater to those that live in the dwelling in Discovery Bay. We want to bring something new to Discovery Bay. But at the same time, we want it good enough to have people come travel and check us out. So what separates us from a lot of other food trailers is we change our menu on our food trailer. So every week we change from smoking days to spicy chicken sandwiches, which we have other menus coming up. So we change our menus on our food trailer, but our restaurant pretty much the same concept, but we're going to have four staples of breakfast, four staples of brunch, and four staples of dinner, but then we're constantly going to have specialties. So every week we're going to have like two specialty breakfasts, two specialty brunch, two specialty dinners, where when it's winter, we're going to have that nice soup, that home style soups, chilies, gravies. And then, during the summer, we're going to have the specialty ceviche that we're just going to be like, wow, that's kind of pretty cool, So it's going to be constantly changing.
Wonderful. And you said the word breakfast a few times. I've heard several people out in Discovery Bay are very excited that they're going to have a new breakfast establishment to go to. Have you decided what your hours will be yet?
So our hours, we have it already. We hold it because we want to give it to everyone when we're ready, because if we give times and we give menus, people are going to knock on it and tell us, like, when are you guys going to open?
So with the restaurant opening up, what is going to be the status of the food truck? Will we still see the food truck driving around town?
Yes. So we've been trying to stay local now. We've been going to a lot of breweries. We've gone to distributors. We tackled a lot of local businesses. What's happening now, because I have a lot of friends that own their own businesses, is we're pretty much catering to their businesses. We found out businesses have a certain financial thing to where they could buy food. So what's pretty cool is we've been integrating with a lot of local businesses to where, like, we wanted to have a business party. So we've been catering to that, we do private events, we do parties, but then we do pop-ups, so we are trying to stay local, and we will reach out, but the trailer's going to go on going. And even after we open our restaurant.
It's terrific because I think food trucks are just such a big deal still, especially going into summer. You see them at concerts, at breweries, everything you've said already. So it'd be great to see you traveling around town there as well.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't ever want to give up on my start. That's what gave me the opportunity and the blessing to continue doing this.
Let me ask you one last question. I'm a food guy. You're a food guy. What's your favorite food that you make? What's your favorite meal that you make in your restaurant?
It might be funny, but not even just in the restaurant. Like, to this day, I still eat top ramen. I told myself when I was in prison, I'm never going to eat pancakes or top ramen ever again, because that's all we have is pancakes, and not the good ones, and top ramen. But like, I still eat top ramen. I still, but not just the water. Like, I still throw more ingredients, and people think I'm crazy, but it's just, I think for eating it for so many years, I'm still stuck on that. After everything's done with the restaurant, we're working on opening a channel to where we could create foods with the top ramen for not just my fellow brothers that are incarcerated, to show them like the ingredient, because people still tell me, how did you make these tamales? How did you make all this stuff? Like, and it's kind of hard to sit there and explain. So we want to create a channel to and hopefully write a book regarding the recipes on how we use top ramen in there. But if you think about it, people in college, that's all they eat.
Oh my, yeah.
So it's not just for my people incarcerated, but it's for those that, don't have their mom and dad, or don't even know how to cook. You can't burn top ramen, but I could show you how to make amazing things with it,
I can definitely burn top ramen, but I'd love to hear your recipes for how to make it, how to zhuzh it up a little. So we've asked you a lot of questions. Greg and I both bounced a lot of questions off you. Is there anything that you feel we haven't touched on that you'd like to talk about while we've got you here?
Honestly, I do, want to take the time to tell everyone that gave me the opportunity, or even for those that I don't even know that spoke highly of me, because again, it's hard for a normal individual to start a business, and at the end of the day, it wasn't easy, and it's still not easy. But for those that constantly speak of our business and of myself highly, I appreciate you guys. For all local supporters, I appreciate you guys. For everyone that kind of shares our stuff, reposts, and mentions, thank you. And for my people that are still incarcerated, it is a struggle. It is something that is not really talked about, but it is a whole different world, and it's difficult. But for those that believed in me before I even believed in myself, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate everyone, from my amazing wife, my family, and for those that I've met, I've met people, that for the last year, even a couple months, that, I hold truly to my heart, because one way or another, they help support and help continue this vision, and like I'm gonna repeat myself again, it's not just building a business, Taste's Kitchen, we're building a culture.
Greg, we got to meet several months ago and was very impressed with your story, and can't wait to come out to the grand opening for the restaurant. So
No, for sure. And we can't wait. Just to throw it in there, like our restaurant is created and it is different. So like in the restaurant, you're gonna find little different things that we show appreciation to our people.
All right, that's it for today's episode of Clocked In with the Press. We appreciate you taking the time to listen in, and we look forward to speaking with you in future episodes. I'd like to thank both Greg Robinson and Greg Reynoso for joining me today. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
thanks, Jake. Glad to be here.
Thank you, Jake. Glad to be here.
We'd also like to thank you, the listeners. If you'd like to read more news stories about East Contra Costa County, you can do so on our website at www.thepress.net or through our Twitter and Instagram at PressClockedIn. Be sure to tune in this Friday for your local news and sports highlights. And as always, contact us with your thoughts on this episode or any other by emailing podcasts@brentwoodpress.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll be back again soon. This is Jake.
This is Greg.
This is Greg.
Clocking out.
When it comes to the home of your dreams, a trusted realtor can help with every step of your home buying journey. The Lucas Group is committed to excellence and personal service in all their sales. Their award-winning team is dedicated to putting their clients' needs first and consists of some of the top local agents. The Lucas Group has partnered with HomeLight Inc. and is now an elite certified agent partner for simple sales, trade-ins, and cash offers. Call the Lucas Group at 925-392-8926.